Welcome to the Geek Homeworld. I am your host, Ed, aka SavageTechman. We talk sci-fi, TV, movies, superheroes, and all from a geek perspective. You can find us on Blogger, Google+, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. We're everywhere. Join the Geek Homeworld. Welcome to another episode of the Geek Homeworld. I am your host, Ed Ciucevich, aka SavageTechman, as my Xbox gamer tag always says. I'm trying out a different way here to do something, and first off, I'm celebrating 5 years of podcasting, and I think that's 11, 12 years. I'm not doing the math. I refuse to do math unless I have to. But anyway, so 2008, I started podcasting, and I was very shy about doing the whole video thing. And so I'm trying a little something different here. And one of my favorite things for the podcast is the interaction with everyone, and so I'm trying to do more with podcast and interaction. So I want to thank everybody who's been part of, in any way, the podcast, who's been a guest on my podcast, on the Quotables podcast that I did. It's still available on I want to say iTunes, but it's Apple Podcasts now, and the Geek Homeworld, which is this current podcast, but also on Digital Man Cave, which was the first podcast I did. And I want to thank everybody who has been a guest on the podcast, any of them, and part of it. And I'm evolving, hopefully, and getting better. I got a Logitech 920 camera. It's a little bit better than the one, believe it or not, in my gaming computer, or gaming laptop, I should say. Probably need an extra computer or something like that. But anyway, if this setup works out, I'm trying different things to incorporate gameplay and video, and hopefully this won't drop too many frames. And if you don't know what that means, then you don't know as much about gaming. I don't mean that the bad way. So I'm working on my lighting. I don't know if my lighting's good. There's my cool little sign back there. You probably can't see, but it's changing colors. Right now that's red, so a hint of red, and now it's green. Anyway, so just some paraphernalia back there that I've got, different things in the background. So anyway, I want to thank everybody who's been part of the podcast, and everyone who has contributed in any way and been a guest. And I've got so much more to come as we go into our 6th year. So it's been 5 wonderful years of podcasting. I do Sven on Film, the radio show. It's now in a podcast form, and it's also on Facebook Live. So I could have did this on Facebook Live, but I'm trying believe it or not, the Logitech ecosystem here to record this video. So in this first ever trailer reaction, and this is one of my favorite franchises. Even when it's bad, for me it's still good. There are people that love this franchise. A lot of people have forgotten about it and just moved on. I'm not one of those people. I've always enjoyed it, and I intend to enjoy it more and have fun with everything. So anyway, let's watch and there may be a little bit of language, so just a warning here in the trailer, but this is the Terminator Dark Fate official trailer number 2. So, as the Joker always said, and here we go.
fast.
Sarah Connor is back.
My name is Sarah Connor. August 29, 1997 was supposed to be Judgment Day. My son John and I stopped it. Saved 3 billion lives. Enough of a resume for you?
No.
Mr. James Cameron returns.
But you didn't change our fate.
What are you? Never seen one like you before. Almost human.
I am human. Just enhanced. Let's get something straight. It's my mission to protect her. If you put her in danger, I will fuck you up.
Right. I drive.
Tim Miller, producer of Deadpool.
Brother. Whole body's a weapon. Save it for the ladies. Sorry.
Come with me!
Witness the new chapter. This part right here reminds me of Deadpool. Spike's coming up. There's a theme. Hell yeah.
I'll be back.
It wouldn't be Terminator without that line. Now she's saying it. And this says this October, but it's actually November 1st.
If you don't make it!
How do we stop this thing?
You don't fight it. You run from it.
This looks badass.
Do you believe in fate, Sierra?
We don't win this one. It's all over. You know, when we're done, I am going to kill you.
Awesome. So, I don't know if you've seen the trailer. That one was a little raunchier one, which is fine, it's great. I just think it strikes a great balance. Did it blow me away? No, it didn't. And full disclosure, at the time of recording this, I've watched it several times. And actually, it's growing on me, and I can't wait. And if I'm the only one in the cinema watching it, then that's cool. I don't care. I don't care what critics say. Doesn't really matter at all. It's how I enjoy the film, and so I plan to enjoy the film. I plan to have a good time with it and watching it. So I'm super excited for Terminator Dark Fate, and there's a lot of other films I'm excited for. And so having Linda Hamilton back, I don't know if she's aged so well, but I don't know, they got her being badass, and that's the Sarah Connor I know. Even when they did the Sarah Connor Chronicles, which I thought was a good show until it got to later on, it started out so strong. And basically, James Cameron is looking at Terminator Dark Fate as a direct sequel to Terminator 2 Judgment Day, which is still, and probably will always be, the best Terminator film. Now, ironically, I guess, if Dark Fate does abysmal, just terrible at the box office, I thought about this when I saw the title reveal of it, Dark Fate. I hope it isn't a dark fate for this film. Sarah Connor in this trailer changed Judgment Day, saved 3 billion lives, and all that, because August 29th, 1997 was originally the date set forth in the first Terminator, but definitely the second Terminator as Judgment Day. And they averted her and her son, John Connor, who they have not shown here, so maybe he's in it. I don't know. And I don't want to know spoilers for it at all. I really don't. And I can't wait till November 1st when this comes out. But John and Sarah Connor averted Judgment Day. And if you watch Sarah Connor Chronicles, then you'll see that. And it was pretty badass. And so just trying to think my thoughts on the whole Terminator franchise. We had 1984 started it off with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and yes, some of the effects don't really hold up as much in there. It wasn't special effects that we'd be terribly proud of these days, but it was great for the time. Or it was it was actually scary, verge of a horror movie. I mean, just the relentlessness of the T-800, which is Arnold Schwarzenegger's character. And I'm not sure the older Terminator, how he factors into this. Some of the other films have dealt with that, like Genesis. And some people say like that Terminator Genesis was hands down the worst one. I kind of liked it, even though my friends and I will agree that the trailer gave away too much. So I wasn't happy about the fact of that. But I tell you, if you're a fan of Terminator, you like it all. You know, it's just like being a Star Wars fan. Never has the fandom ever been this divided after Last Jedi and in Solo, and I'm so tired of all that. I can't wait for The Rise of Skywalker to come out, which this is coming out a month before. It's very smart, you know. It worries me that it's not a summer release, but it could get lost in the summer, so that's fine. If it's November, I can wait. I just want Dark Fate to be really good, because we had Terminator, the Terminator from 1984, which is a classic. I think Rotten Tomatoes gave it 100. It deserves it. But I'd give 110 plus to Terminator 2 Judgment Day, which started the whole morphing thing. And so we're in 91, 92 when that was happening. I remember Michael Jackson's Black or White was doing it. Everybody was doing that. Just like The Matrix came along 20 years now. Isn't that crazy? In 1999. And the bullet time stuff that was in video games and stuff, they really improved upon it. Then everything was doing bullet time. So, but everybody was doing that little morphing kind of thing with the T-1000 that, is it Robert Patrick that played it? I can't think of his name. I hope that's right. He was later on X-Files and as a T-1000 in Terminator 2. Then Terminator 3, which now kind of plays video game-ish to me, you know. It still holds up as an awesome action film in the series. But it started to become... It was almost the Batman and Robin of that franchise. You know, if I could compare it, which you really can't, but... it still felt like Terminator. It's kind of like the prequels still felt like Star Wars, even though they weren't as good as the original trilogy of Star Wars. So there's some contrasts, comparisons, whatever, for you there. But I was very excited about the Terminator films there. I think T2... until maybe Avengers, actually till episode 3, believe it, of Star Wars, Revenge of the Sith, was the most times I'd seen a film, and I think it was 7 times, and I saw Revenge of the Sith 8 times in the theater, and that was before AMC had an A-list, you know. It was essentially would have been free, well, minus the 20-something bucks we pay a month for it, which I love. The AMC Plus service. Forgive me, by the way, side note here, if I'm not looking directly at the camera. I'm trying to get used to that, and I'm not going to adjust the camera, so I keep looking down. I'm seeing my reflection, and I'm looking at different things, so I'm trying to look straight at the camera now, so hopefully I'm doing that well. But yes, so there's all these franchises in my lifetime, and that's not supposed to happen. That was a pop-up. And so I'm not going to play with anything here because, I don't know. I'm working this whole thing out, so forgive me if if this doesn't work out well. But anyway, I'm going to end this in just a second, but just talk about, so there was 1984's Terminator, The Terminator, then Terminator 2, which is still the best and spectacular. Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines, with the Terminator X, or some people call it the Terminatrix, Christina Loken, I believe. I hope I'm saying it right. Was the female Terminator, and that's the cool thing with all the politics going on now in films and stuff, and whatever. Nobody made a big deal that there was a female Terminator. I mean, and Arnold was in it, and he was still awesome in it. And then we had Christian Bale with Terminator Salvation, and I thought it was a good bridge at first, and I cannot remember the guy. He was in Clash of the Titans, the 2 Titan films that were done, and I liked the turn of basically the kind of, if you haven't seen it, this is a spoiler alert. So basically, when Sarah Connor says in this one, in Terminator Dark Fate, in the trailer, that she thinks that the lady in this film is a Terminator, a new kind of Terminator. She said, I'm not, I'm human, just enhanced. So it's kind of like the character literally gave his heart so John Connor, played by Christian Bale, could live in Terminator Salvation. And that, I thought, was closer to a Mad Max type of film, and not as good as the last Mad Max, but they had planned out a trilogy, which they're saying trilogy for this, and I'm like, whoa, hold your horses, but I don't care. I want a trilogy. Keep making Terminator films as long as you can. Just get them better. And in fact, James Cameron, he's uncredited on the screenplay for this because he didn't probably add enough to the story, but he was involved in the story. But he's returning as producer, so that helps. That helps a lot. I like that he had his input, and he's had his input kind of unofficially in some of the other films. So we had the Christian Bale Terminator Salvation that flopped. It basically is a line going down box office. It was the first Terminator, then it was Terminator 2, then Terminator 3, and then Terminator Salvation, and then so that didn't do so well, so there wasn't a trilogy, and Christian Bale moved on to other things, and I think this was all post Dark Knight, so he was, he almost had his pick of roles at that point, and anyway, so I mean, I just love Terminator, the idea of time travel, AI, and all that. And that's the thing about Terminator 3, kind of flipped the story on its head, and it basically said, if you really pay attention to it, well, it's not that hard to figure it out, but if you watch Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines, basically, you had Kate Blanchett? No, that's not it. She was on My So-Called Life with Jared Leto. I think it was Jared Leto back in the day. Oh, gosh. What is her name? Claire Danes. So Claire Danes was John... In the future of Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines, she was John Connor's wife. So she sent the Terminator back to... Just like the Terminator was sent back, the Resistance sent back John Connor did to protect himself or whatever in T2 from it being terminated. They did the same with the T-800 Arnold, and he was no match for the Terminatrix or the Terminator X. So let's see, John Connor in that one, and I forgot the gentleman that played him in Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines. He was in that one, and they were supposed to... So they went after all of his determinatrix. She went after all of his generals, including his wife, and played by Claire Danes. And in the end, they find out that they were never meant to stop Judgment Day. They were meant to survive it. And basically there was this virus taking over the internet, and so her father was in charge of Skynet, and he made it active, and when it went active, then of course it did a nuclear strike against Russia, which meant we would retaliate. It basically launched everybody's nuclear weapons to try to wipe out mankind, and so the Terminators would take over. Then we get to Terminator Salvation, and this is pretty much in line with all of that, and it didn't go as far into the future war as I was hoping it would. It did a little bit, but it seemed more believable. It almost felt like how Christopher Nolan was doing Batman Begins and The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises. They were set, especially the earlier films in that trilogy, were more realistic Batmans. And so that's kind of, I think, what they were going with Christian Bale on Terminator Salvation. Then, so that's 3, 4. Number 5 was Terminator Genesis. That came along, and if you hadn't seen it, maybe it's not the best, but I don't know. I kind of think it was one of the best. I like the third one. I like the Christian Bale. I like all of them, okay? But I kind of think, and this is not a popular opinion, but I kind of think Terminator Genesis, which basically it was this operating system. It was kind of taking off of Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines in a way. But it was, I think, one of the best Terminator films. I enjoyed it, except the trailer gave away the part that John Connor basically was infiltrated and taken over by, as it were, by one of the Terminators there. When Kyle Reese was going back in time travel, and their Terminator was a different guy, just like in this one, which is fine. I don't care. Everybody's talking about, the female cast of Terminator Dark Fate. I do not care. It does not matter at all to me. Arnold's in the film, that's a good thing. We've got Sarah Connor back, Linda Hamilton reprising her role, and she looks every bit as kick-ass as she was in Terminator 2. Because she went from being this victim, basically, in the Terminator, kind of like you'd think. She was a waitress, and she just was getting by with her life and just enjoying life and, and this and that. And then she never asked for any of this to be thrust upon her. All this, the future Armageddon of, the Judgment Day and everything. And then we get to the second one, and she's in Tuscadero, I think it is. Penitentiary, mental ward, whatever you want to call it. And so anyway, they planted so many seeds in the Terminator that James Cameron basically did T2 and said, I'm done. There was no trilogy in mind. He said, I've said all I can say. And it's great that now that he has the rights back, like decades later, that we can now have him excited about Terminator films. And James Cameron is going to go down as one of the best of this generation's directors. I mean, obviously Avatar and stuff like that he's doing. And even though I'm not a big fan of Avatar, but still, hands down, in 2019, the best 3D ever. In 3D, it's kind of a fad going out, and that's fine. But I like how technically minded he is as a director. And I hope against all hope that Terminator 2 is Terminator Dark Fate is not a dark fate for the franchise. In fact, I hope it's like a reawakening, maybe this new generation, a discovery of it. It's so funny because the technology now is just about to catch up. When we get into discussions, and we've had episodes on here where I talked about 5G. There's one, if you want to check it out, The Rise of AI, which is a pretty interesting episode I'm proud of talking about the rise of artificial intelligence and 5G. And yes, that's a thing. And that will be a thing that's going to revolutionize the world and in so many ways. True 5G, which is years away, but because even the 5G they're calling 5G now isn't even really upper tier 4G. So, and what does a G stand for? Generation. It's kind of like a value that doesn't really have anything to do with it. Forgive me if I'm talking with my hands here, by the way. I see. It's weird watching myself. I'm usually just audio recording things. So, but anyway, so yeah, I'm excited about Terminator Dark Fate coming out, I believe, November 1st. And I'm just super excited for what it means for the franchise. And hopefully it spawns a new generation. You know, Arnold, this probably is Arnold's last movie. Just like we have Rambo Last Blood coming out, which I think First Blood. And then there's Rambo 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. And, you know, and so I think, you know, if they send them out in a good way, that's fine, you know. And if this is the last thing we ever see of Terminator, I'll be sad, but I hope it goes out on a bang and explosions and great special effects that look real. And that brings me to something as I pause for a minute there. I really hope against hope that what we see in Terminator Dark Fate, it seems a bit different and a lot similar to Terminator 2 Judgment Day, the technology, but that technology was so groundbreaking in the early 90s, and we're in 2019, almost 2020, and I'm hoping against all hope that it all works out and it looks new, and the idea of the two Terminators like splitting up and all in the first little teaser trailer where the Terminator's in the truck, and then like there's this metal pole and he grabs the pole and then he creates another Terminator, which is a little unbelievable, but you know, you can suspend belief or whatever needs to be called for. You know, it can be done. So I'm excited for it. And anyway, so I'm not trying to make a long episode here on the Geek Homeworld. Oh, there you go. Now my computer's just gonna pop up and tell me things I don't care about. And I'm trying to get my mouse clicker to work here. Okay, thank you. Anyway, okay, stop that. It's gonna constantly do this and tell me everything that's coming up. Anyway, so this is Ed, and I'm going to say goodbye for now on this 5th anniversary of the Geek Homeworld podcast. We're at geekhomeworld.libsyn.com. That's geekhomeworld@libsyn.com. You can follow us on Twitter at Geek Homeworld. You check out my radio show on 107.5 FM in Savannah, Georgia, every Saturday from 7 to 8 p.m. We're on Twitter. Savannah on Film Radio is the Twitter handle for the Savannah on Film radio show, which is also a podcast on Anchor and other places. And we're always Facebook Living there every Saturday from 7 to 8 p.m. And anyway, so I hope you enjoy the radio show Savannah on Film, where I get to talk to fellow people in the industry. So the film industry is always an exciting, fun show, and always have great guests. And anyway, so thank you to everybody who's listened, who's been a part of this Geek Homeworld podcast. We're on Apple Podcasts, I got it right, and other places. The podcast app on Google, you can just add Geek Homeworld to it, and it'll update when we put out new episodes. So anyway, this serves as our 5-year anniversary episode. It's also a video episode, so this will be an audio format on the Geek Homeworld YouTube channel, so you can check it out there. And hopefully the video version will be on there too. So hopefully this turns out well. Otherwise, at least I've got an audio recording. Awkward. So anyway, thank you for joining me, and here's to 5 more years of the Geek Homeworld podcast. I'm Ciucevich, aka SavageTechman. You can also follow me at SavageTechman on Twitter, but at Geek Homeworld would be awesome. And please leave your comments if you see this video. And we're on Facebook, Geek Homeworld. I may do some live episodes on there. I may try something on there. I'm working with the interface on figuring it all out, just like I want it here. And I'm recording here in my studio with all my paraphernalia, microphones I'm pointing at. Okay, I'm not doing a good job on camera here. Anyway, so we're the Geek Homeworld. Oops. This is all backwards. I'm trying to point to the sign. You can't see this, but anyway, you see in the background right there. Geek Homeworld. Anyway, so thank you so much, and everybody, you have a great day. Thanks. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Geek Homeworld with your host, SavageTechman. You can find us on Libsyn, Google+, follow and interact with us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, listen to us on iTunes and leave a review, subscribe to us on YouTube, read our thoughts on Blogger. See you again on the Geek Homeworld.